Hello, this is Horror Studio 1, and this is my unedited podcast. Hello, this is Horror Studio 1, and this is the unedited podcast number 12. And before I start my podcast, I just want to warn every single one of you guys that if you guys are feeling down or you guys don't want to listen to anything too serious or too gruesome, you guys can switch off this video or go watch something else that's a bit more happier. But if you guys want to learn about this topic that we have today, then just stay tuned and I will be talking about it with you very shortly. Today's going to be a bit more of a serious day. I know some of my videos, especially these podcasts, I tend to kind of not be so serious because maybe that's how I really am in person in real life. That's how I talk to my friends, my family. So I tend to show that side of myself when I do these podcasts. On the contrary, my ghost videos are a bit more serious. The tone is supposed to be like that. So there's a big contrast between these types of videos, the podcast and the actual ghost videos. But today I want to keep it as a more solemn or serious tone because the things that we are going to be talking about today actually did happen, and I feel they need to be addressed or they need to be shared with you guys who don't know the story. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a more serious day today. Not going to be my usual self. Well, I'm still myself, but yeah, I still honestly do feel kind of sad about these stories. So this is me being sad, Horror Studio 1. And just to comment on something totally random, I opened my window, so if you guys hear cars or something like that, don't be alarmed. They are just cars. So yeah, I'll be starting my topic of the day because I guess there's a lot to talk about. Well, today, if you guys read the title, it's a story about Junko Furuta. It's a Japanese student who was murdered, actually. So if you guys don't know the story, you guys do know the story, you guys want to learn about it or hear me talk about it, you guys can stay tuned. Before I get right into the meat of this podcast, though, I have a few things I want to say and I want to address. I'm going to be canceling the informative videos. It is a playlist I've created. A lot of people really do enjoy them. Basically, they're real videos about real life events. I thought that I was going to keep that segment. Oh my God, it's so loud outside. Maybe I'm just gonna close the window, guys. Just give me 1 second. Okay, close the window. So for the informative videos, basically, they're kind of like the same as the podcast. They were the podcast before I decided to create the podcast, basically, kind of thing. Because they talk about real life events, but I put music in them, I put dramatizations in them, and my voice is, the Horror Studio 1 voice that you guys are so accustomed to listening to. I talked about quite a bit of stuff there, but I just realized that maybe I'll just do those kind of informative stuff in my podcast instead, because a lot of the times I do it, in informative videos, I put music, I do all that stuff. A lot of the real facts get muddled in with the atmosphere, and that's not what I want with those. I've always wanted those to be more informative than anything, but I guess I just didn't have enough confidence back then to do a total non-scripted or just total only my voice kind of video. So I created, the informative videos for that purpose. I just, I think they're really similar because I'm actually subscribed to Alana G. I'm not sure if you guys know who that is, but she does basically just informative videos where she talks about various supernatural or creepy things in kind of like an informative video kind of way where there's music, there's creepy stuff, and then she just narrates as well. And I guess I just maybe tried to emulate that because I do watch her stuff. So, I guess I created the informative videos as a similar kind of thing to that. But I realized that I'm better at making podcasts, and my information and my views get are better translated through this kind of form of content than those kind of things. So I will be canceling informative videos, that whole playlist. If you guys want to hear a lot of information about various different topics, you guys can watch my podcast instead, and that's where I'm going to be posting everything. I will actually talk about a very similar case with the Junko Furuta case, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to talk about something very familiar to that because it reminded me of, I'm going to turn the light on because I'm sorry, I keep doing this like turning light, closing window kind of thing. I don't know. I just want to tell you guys. So, so I'm going to talk about the Hello Kitty murder. So if you guys don't remember, one of my informative videos talked about the Hello Kitty murder in Hong Kong, actually, where a hostess, a 24-year-old night hostess, was taken by a bunch of triad members to a house and actually beaten and raped until she died. And then they basically disembodied her and then took her head, because they had to hide the evidence, took her head, her skull, and put it in a boiling soup and made, head soup out of it. That's basically, the story and why it was such an notorious media explosion back in 1999, because they made soup out of this human being, and they actually later put the skull in a Hello Kitty toy, and thus it's called the Hello Kitty murder. So, I actually thought, I'll tell you guys a bit of backstory. When I made that video, I was scared that, should I call it the Hello Kitty murder? Because you know how sometimes the company, they don't want you talking about their product. But I mean, it's not a creepypasta. Like, it actually happened. So, because if you guys watch Mr. Nightmare, you guys will know that he basically got into a bit of trouble from doing a Chuck E. Cheese creepypasta, and then he made a video talking about that, saying that they sent him a letter saying that they would sue him or something if he didn't take it down, and it was a whole big fiasco kind of thing. And I was afraid. I'm not as big as he is, but you never know, man. If they watch my videos, it's like, whoa, what's this kid talking about? But everyone knows this as the Hello Kitty murder, so I don't think Hello Kitty would be as cryptic as just coming to me and, telling me to take down my videos. I don't think they'll do that. So, yeah, that was the Hello Kitty murders, and actually the Junko Furuta case is extremely similar to that to that case as well, but I think the Junko Furuta case is, it's sad, and it's much more horrific, in my opinion, as opposed to the Hello Kitty murder, because I don't know, it feels a lot worse. I guess just the people that were involved, their background, and the length of time was a lot longer as well. I think in the Hello Kitty, the torturing only lasted 21 days, but in the Furuta case, it was over 44 days. Basically, you guys don't know the story. I'll give you guys a brief description and what I think about it myself. I'm sorry today is going to be a bit more serious, I guess. A bit less of my usual antics. But I think this needs to be that type of video. So the case, which is also called the concrete encased high school girl murder case, because basically the story is there's a 17-year-old girl in the 1989 called Junko Furuta, and one day she was, for no reason, abducted by 4 teenagers. She didn't know why. She didn't know these 4 teenagers. She was minding her own business when she was just basically kidnapped, and she was placed in a house of one of these teenagers, and for the next 44 days, which is a month and a half, she was abused, raped every single day, tortured sexually. It was reported that she was raped over 400 times. That's an average of being raped 10 times per day. These boys would torture her, beat her. They would stick various ornaments into her private parts, hot light bulbs, hooks. They would burn her. Her legs were burned as punishment for trying to go away, and hot wax would be used to burn her face. She was forced to eat cockroaches, and she was also forced to drink her own urine. And it was said that as she was placed in one of the homes of one of the teenage boys, because these boys were all such delinquents, apparently other people that lived in that house, the teenage boy's house, knew of this girl that was kept captive in there, but they didn't dare to speak. I think it was reported that even the mom and dad of that teenage boy knew about this girl, I don't think they knew of the extent that she was being tortured, but they knew that this girl was kind of kept there against her will, and they did not report it in fear of the teenage boys, I guess. And 44 days of torture, rape, sexual assault. There's a bit more. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a really long friggin' list. It's really depressing if you read every single one. If you guys do want to read it, it's easy to find this online. They basically, said they used pliers to rip off one of her nipples. They did horrendous things to this 17-year-old girl for really no reason. So they said that they did it because they felt that they can. So, because I guess it was their kind of entertainment. And that's what they did to this girl. And after 44 days, she finally, she was in shock because they were burning her, and then they basically burned her, and her body couldn't take the abuse any longer and went into shock mode, and she basically died after 44 days of torture. And to hide the evidence, these young teenagers took the girl's body and encased it in a concrete drum that was filled with cement, hence the name Concrete Encased High School Girl Murder Case. And they put it out in the wilderness until somebody found it, of course, and traced it back to these teenagers. After, all this stuff was exposed, these teenagers were tried, of course, as adults, which actually sent, it was very controversial, I guess, but it kind of did. I personally think that it made sense that what the Japanese government do. I mean, I have a lot of emotions for this case. I've heard about this case for a very long time now. Even before making this video, I didn't just research this to make this video. I know about this case from before, and I watched. There was a feature movie on this, and a lot of the scenes were really horrific. Like, basically, they would, strip the girl naked and throw her out into the cold, and then force her to stand there for days, and then come back, and then she would get raped repeatedly by these teenage boys, kind of thing, repeatedly over 400 times, and in a span of 40-something days. It's a huge number. So, I am emotionally, I obviously, like many human beings, I guess, that hear this case, we all feel a sadness, a depression, and kind of an anger, about, those people that committed these crimes, and towards the victim. We feel angry, we feel like, why is that, possible, kind of thing. And but the thing is, I'm not going to try to judge these individuals based on my own emotions. Some people are saying that, yes, if you read some comments online as well, people are, they're like, oh, those boys should burn in hell. They should just fucking kill them. They should just, I wish death penalty was back and stuff like that. But you can't really judge people, even though that morally what happened is definitely not right. You can't really use your own kind of emotions to say those kind of things. So I'm restraining myself from going on a rant about, murdering these boys or going crazy, because if I did that, if I got really emotional and I said a lot of irreversible things, or if I said something like, oh, they should die, how does it differ from me and them? You get what I'm saying? Like, how am I any different from them, right? Their acts were barbaric, that's true, but if I said, let's just murder them and kill them, then I'm also on the same level as they are, and I don't want to be that. I want to analyze this as a analytical perspective, from an informative perspective. That's why I'm making these. And basically these all these four boys were charged, and they were charged as adults, which actually set a major... It had a great effect towards the sentences of young offenders. There's been many books written about this incident. They got people say that they got very short sentences in perspective, but it's really up to the judge and all, and you can't really use your own emotions to judge them, So the leader of that received a 20-year sentence. It's the second highest sentence after, life imprisonment, because of course they were still, underage, they were still juveniles at the time, so I guess they couldn't give them life imprisonment. A lot of them got to 5 to 9 years in prison, or 5 to 7 years, 5 to 9, anything in between those times. And actually, Furuta's parents were very, they thought it was disgusting, the sentences, because they thought that it should have been much longer, for the atrocities that these kids have committed. The ways that they killed this girl and tortured this girl. They thought people were outraged, basically, because they thought that they deserved longer sentences. And despite what you think about that, you have to realize that just because it's a really horrific crime does not mean that you can, again, you can't use your own emotions to judge these individuals, right? They were underage, they were immature, and yeah, it's friggin' horrendous what they did, but the outrage that people experienced with these kids were humongous. And I guess I get why. I myself feel, sometimes I feel angry as well, but I realize you cannot do that, especially as someone who's reporting this kind of stuff. You always have to try to remain objective to most of these things. And but yeah, one of these things that happened was actually after, a lot of the boys, so when they got into jail, they were about 16, 17. When they got released, they would be in their 20s, maybe late 20s kind of thing. And one case actually was one of the males, one of the teenagers who had originally committed the crime, was released from jail, and he actually made the news again by beating the shit out of a male acquaintance and admitted being a triad member. So he was a 33-year-old man at that point. It was in 2004. He served 8 years in jail for the Junko Furuta case, and afterwards, oh no, what I meant is he spent 8 years and then he was released. And then a couple of years later, in 2004, when he was 33, he beat the shit out of his male acquaintance, and he was put in court again, and apparently he bragged about the fact that he murdered that girl. So, I mean, I guess some people never learn. So, I mean, regardless, it's a tragedy. I mean, stuff like this happens, I guess, all the time, Every single day, I think people are tortured. And one thing I like to kind of desensitize myself, I mean, after reading all these, and how I do all these videos and all that kind of stuff, after reading all this information, despite myself being a happy person, it's sometimes really hard to get over, and you could go into depression, and you could feel really sad, and you could lose faith in humanity even, but you just have to realize that throughout history, this stuff has been happening all the time, if you look at back in the past, the genocides that's happened, all that kind of stuff, the tortures that people have endured, in China, they used to torture people in different ways, there was one torture where people would, what I heard from people was that the criminal would be put in a net, a very tight net, and they would constrict the net until it was very tight, very tight, very tight, and they would basically cut every part of the body or the skin that was coming out of that net. So the net would have holes, and then if a part of the skin was coming out, the person would cut it off, and they would cut it off and cut it off and cut it off until the guy bled to death. That's the kind of torture they used to do to people. And comparatively, I mean, human torture has always existed, and I know some people say that humans are the most civilized, individuals, or the most civilized race, most civilized beings on the planet, but what I know is that even animals, they don't find fucked up ways to torture each other. Only human beings are able to come up with this kind of shit. Have you ever seen a bunch of guys, a bunch of animals, a bunch of, dogs gang raping one dog and then putting a light bulb in her private part? Like, that doesn't happen with animals, but for humans, that happens. So, it's a bit to think about. And that is the story, I guess, of Junko Furuta. And I guess this is kind of the reason I don't really want to do a lot of deep web stories either, because, this is so similar. Like, this is exactly the same stuff that you can see on there. And a lot of people have been telling me to do some infamous, stories about the deep web and, a lot of that kind of crap. I honestly don't want that to be on my channel. The reason I did this was because a lot of requests have been made to do this, and I kind of felt it wasn't as bad as some of the stuff on the deep web. But if you look at the deep web and the news that has come up and, the organizations that have been exposed, I'm not gonna say what, because I do not want those names or those titles on my channel even. But if you guys look into the news of that, you guys will know what I'm talking about and the kind of atrocities that people have committed just to make money, and especially if involving children. So yeah, I'm basically saying that, so you guys will probably know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't want to do those, man. Like, I will go crazy if I keep doing these. So yeah, I guess this is just my number 12 unedited podcast. Sorry guys, it was a pretty depressing day. This is a pretty depressing topic, but yeah, this is the case of Junko Furuta. I spelled Junko Furuta. Yeah, I keep saying the Japanese name wrong. So yeah, if you guys want to learn more about it, please, you guys can go online to learn more about it. And if you guys have any more requests about different types of topics I can do, hopefully they're not as depressing as this, then just comment on the comment section below. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.